We are talking Echoes of Fear. This one's got supernatural spectres, slasher serial killers. It's got it all. This one is directed by Rian Avenet-Bradley and also Laurence Avenet-Bradley, who I'm assuming are brothers. Brian also wrote the movie. Trista Robinson stars as Alysa. You've also got Hannah Race and Marshal Hilton. So this is kind of a paranormal mystery, really, first and foremost. So we have this young woman who inherits the house from her recently passed away grandfather, of which she had somewhat of a close, although a little bit estranged relationship with. And we see the kind of the circumstances of his death at the beginning of the movie. She goes there, and it's quite a large house, and it seems to have its fair share of secrets. There seems to be things hidden in the walls, secret kind of like ornaments and various kind of paraphernalia around the movie. There may even be a supernatural presence within this actual house itself. So what the actual circumstances are, we have this girl kind of being essentially scared to death by some type of presence there who appears to be of a very kind of mutilated looking woman, who obviously would scare the bejesus out of everyone, and obviously it leads to a mystery about the circumstances of how it's all kind of transpired and everything. What will happen? We'll have to watch the movie to find out. So first of all, what works about this movie? Like I said, I think this actually has a fair amount going on. Not only do you have the actual supernatural element itself, there's also a serial killer element there as well. So there is kind of a multiple kind of threats in regards to a supernatural drama. So a fair amount of going on. The plot is actually fairly intriguing as you kind of go through the movie. I think it does a good job actually of giving you kind of clues and then having reveals, and then you kind of hit a bit of a stop and think, what's going on here? And it's kind of like then the next thing is revealed, and it all makes kind of sense. And as you get towards the end, I think it's relatively obvious fairly early on about kind of what's going on, but nonetheless, I actually do think it was an easy to kind of follow mystery. It does still have a good level of intrigue. The actual scares themselves, I mean, the way they're filmed, they are kind of the jump scare variety, but there are some quite effective moments here. I feel the first time there's a shot relatively early on, and it's at the top of a stairwell. We just see this kind of figure just kind of walk down the bottom of the stairs, and visually it looks really good. It just looks kind of like really kind of spooky because you're just going to see it out the corner of your eye, and it's not one of those shots where there's obviously this massive void where you know something's going to happen. It's just kind of done in quite a good natural angle. I thought that was quite good. I've got to say, an element I enjoyed about this movie is somehow the realistic way that the characters react to things in this movie. Like this girl, she knows something's going on in their house, so she gets out. She just gets out, but then she's kind of pulled back in because she wants to know what's going on, and that kind of is a good reason for her to stay there, even when she's kind of experiencing stuff. She kind of wants to find out what is going on, so it adds to that realism. And just another little thing, a bit later in the movie, they find something untoward, shall we say, and they immediately try and call the police. There's no kind of like reason why not to, and it just happens straight away. Which again, it's just kind of like I always complain. One of my big complaints is with horror films is people not acting like real people and acting like scripted Hollywood characters. And I'm pleased to say with this movie, at least, the characters are written in a way where they do seem to have some type of realistic reactions to things, which I think is such a blessing, and I wish more horror films would do that. Like I said, the visuals I think are pretty good, but where I feel the movie lacks is audio. I feel the music isn't particularly good here. The scene that I've mentioned with the spectre that kind of goes past down the bottom of the stairs, it would have benefited from having a different type of score, because I do not feel the score here does it any favours. I mean, it's fairly the actual score itself is fairly generically it's generic kind of spooky music, but it just doesn't suit some of the scenes that it's in. It's not bad music per se, but it just isn't particularly well suited to the scenes that they've used it in, if that makes sense. So I didn't feel that was a particularly good use of audio, because the you know, a good soundtrack should add tension to the scene and kind of bring you to a crescendo on kind of certain ones. It just doesn't do it in this movie. I've got to say as well, the main actress aside, who I thought was quite strong, and then there are a couple of other ones. There are some weaker acting here as well. Some of the kind of the line delivery is kind of cringeworthy at times. Admittedly, these are supporting characters, but there are some kind of maybe two actors here, I would say, who deliver lines which are on the pretty weaker side, unfortunately. But I'm pleased that the main actress isn't part of that group. But yeah, some of them are okay, but there are maybe a couple of instances where I felt the acting was a little weak. There's also just a subplot that just seems to be dropped and isn't going to go anywhere. There's a kind of a B plot where we have a squatter in this kind of house, and it just doesn't go anywhere. It just kind of is forgotten about, and so it just seems irrelevant to have it in the story to begin with. And it's quite a lot of build up to it, and then it's just he just goes away. Yeah, so it's just kind of like, oh, what was the point? There you go. So the actual film itself isn't particularly scary. It does try and have that kind of that jump scare mentality, but I feel some of the way the movie, partly because of the sound, and I think sometimes the overuse of POV shots as well, it doesn't really fill you with any kind of sense of dread. There are a couple of like jump moments that I thought were quite good, but it could have done a little bit more to kind of just ratchet up the kind of the creepy factor for me, because I just didn't think it quite got there. And but when the focus kind of changes in the movie, I don't know, it's never really scary again from that sort of point on. I do think it's a solid kind of supernatural mystery film. It's less of a kind of horror movie, although there are a kind of, when we see the kind of the ghost situation, I think that the makeup is pretty good and effective, and there are some like I say, jumpy scenes there. But I feel maybe it's more of a supernatural mystery drama than a horror to a certain degree. But it's worth a watch. I was quite intrigued with the actual plot, and I thought some of the kind of the character work was fairly sort of strong in regards to making these characters kind of seem believable. And there are some solid kind of makeup effects. It's not particularly spectacular, but solid. I'll give this one an above average mark of 6 out of 10. Have you seen it? What did you think of it? Leave me a comment and I shall look forward to you next time. Bye for now.